All right, good morning, everyone. I have a full crowd here upstairs at Rock Title. Let me get, hopefully you are all online seeing my screen here. I am not used to doing, hang on there. What? There we go. Okay. Oh, I like that. All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Melissa Schwartz, the managing broker of the Paradise Valley office. We have a full crowd online and a full crowd up here in Rock Title. Thank you so much for Rock for opening your training center doors. For those that don't know, Melinda is standing over there saying hello. We've got Melinda and we've got Roberta here as well. Gosh, maybe you can count how many people are in here. I'm not sure. We have more than 25 people here, but thank you for coming in and joining us today. There are some pads of paper Roberta is handing out. If you guys have questions in the room, if you could write them down, pass them over. Kat is here in person. Say hello to Kat. Anybody that doesn't know Kat? She's our new administrative assistant in our offices. For those of you online with questions, please put them in the chat. Kat will be watching those questions. We will take a couple of breaks to answer questions, but I'm going to try to go through these forms and we'll have some time at the end to answer. I want to give kudos to Leah Kramer, our managing broker of the Goodyear office. She's the one that created this slide deck, so I'm very appreciative of her. In true Leah fashion, she has said, WTF, right? That's how we all feel right now. WTF. Oh, wait, that means what's that form? How many of you know how many, and I'm going to do this to the people here because we don't want you all opening up online, but how many of you here know how many forms have either been created or being modified that begin August 1st? 18. Wow. Okay, my PV people are in. They're really 20, is that what you said?
There's really 20 if you listen to all of it.
Well, on the form, if I looked at the whole thing, there were only 18 I counted. So maybe I'll go back and double check that. And we are going to go over these 4 today. For those that are not aware, this is kind of a repeat of what Leah covered last Thursday. Leah will go on and do her presentation this coming Thursday. I will repeat that next Tuesday to do some in-person and again online for those that were not able to attend that. Today, we are going to go over the buyer broker exclusive employment agreement. You'll get used to hearing that as the BBEEA, and then the buyer broker agreement to show. Ooh, we went all dark. How did that happen? Oh, they turned the lights out there. And then the unrepresented buyer disclosure. This is a brand new form. And then the tenant buyer employment agreement addendum. That addendum is needed for either of those 2 buyer broker agreements on the top there. So that's why we have that additional document. All right. Warning, this is more for Leah. I'm not really all that keen in explicit language, but you may in fact hear some language here. I did kind of look at what Leah had to say. There are a few things that I may end up saying, but at any rate, let's make sure if you are online, please stay on mute. You came onto the Zoom in mute mode. Please make sure you stay on mute. If you will type your questions into the chat box, the moderators will respond. Actually, they will not. We have our administrative. She's not going to respond. She is a licensed agent. Kat is here with us. She is a licensed agent, but she will not be responding because she's not one of our brokers. I was not able to get, as far as I know, we don't have another broker online today. So I will have to try to answer those questions when we have our breaks. Let's see. Okay, helpful stuff. I will send everyone that registered on Zoom and I know there are more people here than registered. So if you did not register, please make sure you get that information to me so that you can get all this detail. Either it'll probably be tomorrow, not today, but we will get you, again, this information you see right here. If you have not been to facts.realtor, and you're going to get the entire slide deck, don't worry. If you did not, how many of you have been to facts.realtor here in this room? All right, I encourage you all to go look at the Q&A page, especially. This is the best resource for the things related to the NAR settlement and the resulting policy changes. So again, I'm going to give you the entire slide deck. You are going to get these links. We are also providing buyer and seller scripts from Forward Coaching. That was a recent class that was offered. We will forward that to you. A copy of the general flow chart, which I will show you in just a second, of the forms potentially needed in certain situations that will help you to know, am I supposed to use this or this form? So we're going to give that to you. I have put in our Realty One Group Paradise Valley YouTube channel here. We will upload this recording to our YouTube channel probably by tomorrow. And again, we will email out the link to you as well. And if you have not logged in, I mean, I know I've sent it to you. If you are not getting my emails that you should be getting, if you're a PV agent every Sunday, I have been sending this for a couple of weeks. The new and updated sample forms, please understand you currently can see the red line version there, and you can see the new version with sample written across it. They are not yet on your transaction desk or SkySlope forms. Does anybody know when they will land there? August 1st. When are we supposed to begin using them? August 1st. What happens if you send us something on a different form? It's going to get rejected. So please make sure you are using, again, 18 forms. That's a lot of forms. So ERs, all these forms, they are changing. Most of them are changing August 1st. All right. So buyer forms flowchart. This is a form that was created to try to give an idea of when you're going to use which forms and kind of what relationship you're going to have with the other entity. So these are specifically with the buyers. So the first one on the left says it's a one night stand. They're viewing only. It's your listing or it's your team listing. You're holding an open house. They're just coming in. No forms are needed, right? Do you understand that? Open houses, you're the listing agent or you are with the listing brokerage and you are there on behalf of the seller. Nothing is needed for that buyer, right? It's a one night stand coming in, going out. You may not even know their name, right? There you go. All right, next, they want to view homes. All right, here we go. This is the buyer broker exclusive employment agreement, the BBEA. You're going to put a ring on it. You are getting married to that buyer. You are working exclusively. They are working exclusively with you, okay? I love this word. Leah comes up with great things. So Leah came up with polyagentus, meaning guess what? They're working with a lot of agents, right? Anybody, anytime, doesn't matter. You're not committed. They're unwilling to commit to you and probably anybody else. Who do you think is going to fall into this line?
Excuse me, we aren't seeing any different slides online.
You're not seeing the slides. Oh,
no, it's frozen. Sorry.
It's frozen? That is weird. Okay, hang on, folks. What is this doing? I have never seen this way of it's doing it, so.
Yeah, it's frozen.
All right, let me end the slideshow. Okay, hang on. Let me.
That's working.
What?
It's working now.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, is this what's causing the oh, can you see that now?
No.
Okay, hold on. Thank you. Just next time, just let me know, okay? I know.
It's back to the main one now.
Yep, I hear that. Let me go back. I don't know how to get out of this all of a sudden. End slideshow. Okay. So online, you're seeing my sidebar. I don't know how to remove the sidebar though. Can you guys in the room see that well enough though?
I can see it fine.
Let me see if I can.
Thank you, Chloe.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
Ooh, there you go.
Yeah, we have somebody on here, but
Yeah.
yeah, Kat's on it. I just need to. Mhm.
Just on the bottom right. You can, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not going to change. I'm trying to get rid of the left-hand side.
On the Zoom option. for
Sometimes it's how you share on Zoom.
Not the desktop.
So you can select just your PowerPoint presentation through the share button.
Here in the top right. Over,
Okay,
a
right,
little bit
drop
more,
down that share button.
over more. The green button in the middle. There you go. Drop it down.
Share the presentation. All participants.
No, that's who can share, folks.
Yeah.
No. I'm the one sharing.
Mhm.
Trying to get rid of the sidebar in the presentation.
I'm just trying to get rid of the sidebar. Usually you go from the beginning with a slideshow.
No, you can go all the way over to the right where it says share in the top red. Top right there, and then put presentation into that.
Hmm,
Oh, darn it.
no.
No,
No, this is a new Zoom changed this morning. Just so you guys know, Zoom uploaded a new thing. And so this is showing a different presentation here. Hang on a second. I just want to be able to see just the main slide.
Yeah.
Okay, so get out of there. Okay, so can you guys see my screen well enough that you can see this?
Yeah.
Can folks
Yeah.
online see it well enough? I know you got the sidebar, but I don't know how to get rid of the sidebar without impacting.
it's plenty big for me. I don't know about anybody else.
Can you see that okay?
I agree. I agree with Chloe. It's plenty big.
Okay. All right, folks, we'll continue. Let me just back up for a quick second. Let me go back so the people online. Well, actually, we're back there anyway. So the question is it going to move forward? There we go. So there's the WTF and what forms we were talking about. Here's our little disclaimer. Please put your stuff in the chat box. But yes, obviously, if you're not seeing stuff, please let me know. And you need to let me know next time. Sorry. Okay. Helpful stuff. You will all online. You will all be getting a copy of these materials, including all these slides. They're all going to be emailed to you. And then here is the form flow chart that we were just talking about. So wants to view a home. And I was just talking about polyagentists. They're unwilling to commit to you. And I'd ask the question, who do you think this is going to apply to specifically? And somebody in here did answer investors. You may have investors that are not going to commit to you. They just want to see a home. Would not surprise me. You can use the BBEA for them for a specific property, but basically the polyagenists will also be those people at an open house that come in and want to see a home down the street. We'll talk about it a little more later. And then I love this. They swiped left. They want to submit an offer on your listing, but don't want to be represented. In other words, the unrepresented buyer disclosure and the ready form. So that just gives you an overview of that. All right, so what we will not cover today. Thank you very much. Your opinions on NAR and or the NAR settlement terms, your opinions on how the election may affect the NAR settlement terms, what California, Washington, Nevada, or any other state is doing. And I mentioned Nevada because they are doing things differently. Even though we are all part of Realty One Group and corporate, they're doing stuff their way, we're doing stuff our way. Scripts for addressing the NAR settlement terms with buyers and sellers. We're not covering that today. Scripts for sharing your value proposition with buyers as part of a buyer consultation. Lots of opportunities to do that if you're a Realty One Group agent, but this is not the place we're going to address that. What we will cover, and I've already said this, these are the 4 forms: the buyer broker exclusive employment agreement, the buyer broker agreement to show property, the unrepresented buyer disclosure form, and the buyer tenant employment agreement addendum. Capiche? Everybody got that? All right, thank you. So I think we still have some folks in here from Rock. One of the things we are blessed to have the opportunity to work with is Rock Title and their Rock University. Last week, there was a class on winning strategies for buyer agents, how to demonstrate your value and lock in your commission. Guess what we've been talking about? Here you go. Here's an opportunity in terms of scripts. So you have that opportunity to go watch the video. The video is in Rock University. Even if you are not with Realty One Group, you can sign up to get access to Rock University's information. Go on there and you can go look at this presentation by Jeff, I think it's Zimper. So thank you, Rock, for providing those resources. We've talked about this in my office. I'm hoping others are addressing this, but show commitment and value to your buyer clients. You do have the opportunity to get your ABR designation for free in 2024. NAR has opened this up the entire year. You can register at https://become.abr.realtor. It's self-paced online, and again, it is free. Okay, so I am not going to go through all of these slides, but I'm going to just give you a little bit of information. This page or this screen talks about buyer broker agreements. These were the mandatory provisions from NAR's settlement. This is what AAR had to address in revising these agreements. And happy to report that they've been adopted by ARMLS for all subscribers. So, but having ARMLS made this one more layer to having all subscribers participate. It is true that at the recommendation of the Arizona Department of Real Estate, the governor vetoed the bill to make it mandatory for all licensees. But with ARMLS adding all subscribers, it does level a little bit of that playing field. So, if you have not already seen the updated ARMLS rules, you will see these are the policy changes. If you have not already read the ARMLS rules and regulations and associated fines, I recommend you take a peek at those. For those that have been doing it for a while and familiar with clear cooperation, who reports clear cooperation violations? Other agents. We do, right? We're going to be the ones that are going to be overseeing this and turning others in. So we saw the yard sign in the yard 5 days ago, and it is not in the MLS. We're filing the violations. I suspect as we enter into conversations with buyers at open houses, we will probably be submitting infractions as we find them. Brokers are going to have their system set up as well. SkySlope has announced that they have the buyer broker version of things, and you no longer have to have an address to submit to it. We have not seen that yet, but it is coming. I expect in the next week or two, we will get that information. You will be entering your buyer broker agreements into SkySlope within how many hours of signing them? 72 hours of signing a buyer broker agreement. You need to upload that. That is no different from any other contract. We just did not require it in the past because our system required that we, I don't think I loaded the poll. Oh no. That we, I lost my train of thought. The system required that we required an address. Thank you very much, whoever said that. Okay, I am not sure I loaded my poll into here. So let me see how I can get that poll so everybody can get to it. Go ahead.
I already have a buyer agreement in place using the current buyer broker agreement. Do I need new docs for those clients on August 21?
The question was, and we will go over this as well. The question was, do we need a new buyer broker agreement if we have one currently on August 1st? And the question is yes, you will need a new buyer broker agreement. You will not need a new ER, and that will be covered in 2 weeks. But you will need a new buyer broker agreement on August 1st. Let's see, how do I add this poll? This is such a bummer. Okay, we're gonna have to do this with me just reading these, I guess. I'm so bummed I forgot to add this in here.
It's okay.
Yeah, let me, people online, go ahead and you can send in the responses. I'm gonna read these out. And folks in here, you can also just verbally respond, but give me just a second to finish it. As of 8/1/2024, all real estate agents in Arizona must have a buyer broker agreement signed prior to showing buyers homes. True or false?
True.
False. T. They could have the BBH.
I said all real estate agents.
Oh.
Realtors.
False, because Realtor members and ARMLS subscribers, not all real estate agents, okay? In order to be all real estate agents, the governor would have had to sign that bill that would have made it law or statute. Question 2, any prospect that enters my open house must sign a buyer broker agreement before they can tour the home. True or false? False. On NAR's Q&A page, there are several circumstances under which the written agreement was not required. Open houses was one of those. Anything you are doing on behalf of a seller, the form is not required. So if one of you maybe is on a team and you get a sign call to go over and show the home because somebody called on a sign, you are not required to have that. You just go show the home. You're working on behalf of the seller, not the buyer, all right? Question number 3. If I have a signed buyer broker agreement prior to 8/1, that agreement is grandfathered in and I won't need to have a new BBEEA signed.
False.
Okay, everybody here got that. Hopefully everybody online as well.
What if it's already closing, like? In
Okay.
February?
So if you are currently under contract, that is not an issue. You do not need to do anything, even if it closes after 8/1. However, if it falls out between now and a date in August, in order to show any new properties, you will have to do a new buyer broker agreement, okay? Number 4, regarding the compensation line on my buyer broker agreement, I may write 5 cookies or the amount offered by the selling listing brokerage, whichever is greater. 5 cookies. We may have people that are not with Realty One Group on this call. That's why they're 5 cookies. Is the answer true or false? Oh my gosh, people are not really knowing this. The answer is false. It has to be ascertainable, has to be verifiable, has to be, I love this word, axiomatic, has to be as very specifically delineated amount. And it has to be entered either as dollars or percentage. Assuming those are your 2 options as we go through. Cannot have any vague references or something else. You must have it specifically listed, okay? If the selling listing brokerage is offering 6 cookies to a buyer broker and my buyer broker agreement is for 4 cookies, I'm entitled to 6 cookies offered. True or false?
False.
False. As we go through, you will see the verbiage. This is one of the changes that NAR required. You, as the agent, are no longer entitled to compensation for excess of what you have written into your buyer broker agreement, okay? Procuring cause will still be a viable case after 8/1.
False.
I'll take a drink here, huh?
True, I mean, when did they sign with two people?
The answer is false. Nope. Because of the showing agreement that we are going to discuss today that allows in essence for a buyer to work with multiple agents, only the agent who writes the contract is entitled to payment. Do you understand that? Only the agent that writes the contract gets the money. No cookies otherwise, okay?
I think
This-
it's gonna be-
Well, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. So, because you have to have a written agreement with a buyer to show a home, procuring cause will be off the table. And you are going to have one of the two documents. It's going to be non-exclusive. Hey, we can work with anybody and whoever writes it gets paid. Or you are going to have the exclusive, which means there is no procuring costs, right? You are going after your buyer to obtain payment if they try to circumvent you. That's what you were talking about, okay? All right, let's put a ring on it. Let's see if I can go to the next page here. Buyer broker exclusive employment agreement, or in other words, put a ring on it, all right? Some of you have been using the current version, but there are lots of changes that have been made. So we are sharing with you the redlined version so you can see how many changes have been made, right? You can view this redline version again at that AAR site if you want to see this in a larger text. We are going to lovingly refer to this as put a ring on it. This is we are marrying into a contract together. We are only working with one another. We means the buyers, right? We are not out there cheating on you with others. If they cheat on you, the divorce is going to be very expensive for them, okay? Make it clear, right? Make sure you are using the August 2024 version on August 1st, 2024.
This is a prenuptial agreement.
Well, yeah, kind of. Well, no, it's actually, it's the wedding contract, no prenup, it's the wedding contract. So, make sure you're using the current version on August 1st. If you have one before then, or if you're writing one right now in the next 2 weeks, I would take a sample version of the new one with you and explain that on August 1st, you will be sending that over for signature. Because you cannot sign it today. It's not valid until 8/1, okay? Notice to buyers, all oops, let me go to that very top. Notice to buyers, all realtors. See, that's got the little R notice there, realtors. Does not say in there and ARMLS subscribers. Okay, but all realtors are required to have a signed written agreement prior to showing a home to a buyer. Right at the top, very clear. This is to help you out. If you're going over this form, it says you must have this, right? If they say, well, I'll go find somebody else.
You can't.
You can find somebody else, but they're still going to require you do this unless, of course, they're not a realtor or an ARMLS subscriber. So if they're not using ARMLS, how are they finding home? Well, they can get AAR forms if they're part of AAR, but if they're part of AAR, they should be realtors then. But how are they searching for homes if they're not on ARMLS? Well, but that doesn't give them showing instructions, right? That doesn't give them access to the homes. Okay, I'm going to read through these line by line. So in case you can't see it, I am going to go over these. So agreement. This buyer broker exclusive employment agreement, referred to as agreement, is between buyer and broker in consideration of broker's agreement to assist buyer to locate, negotiate, and facilitate the purchase of a property. Buyer gives broker the exclusive and irrevocable right to represent buyer in the purchase of a property during the term, right? Exclusive, irrevocable. Those are terms that are most important to this document. You are only working with me as your agent, right? Those are really important. We are now married. Where's my ring? Can I have a ring? Okay. Okay, when you can afford it. All right, let's buy the house first. All right, buyer acknowledges that signing more than one buyer broker exclusive employment agreement or similar agreements could make buyer liable to compensate multiple brokers. This was with response to your question, right? So how important do you think that you need to discuss that with your agent, with your buyer, right? This is one of the biggest requirements we had to have on there. Make sure they understand this. Buyers, don't go sign multiple versions of this. I need you to hear me. This is locking you in with me. So to ensure you are protected and that you don't owe multiple agents for multiple compensations, please make sure you only work with me, right? How critical is that? Who's responsible for communicating that to their buyers when you're signing this form with them? You are. Please make sure they understand that. Practice this at home with somebody, or come in and practice it with another agent, but make sure you understand how important that is. It's underlined, right? So it's not in bold, or it's in bold, but it's not capitalized, right? Yeah. Well, there are plenty of things that are in, and it may actually be in capitals on the new document. I haven't seen that one, or I haven't looked at it today. So, all right. What is required for any contract in the state of Arizona?
Consideration.
A term, a start date, and an end date, right? So the next line says this agreement shall commence on date and expire at 11:59 Mountain Standard Time on an expiration date. Yes.
How long can you write that for?
How long does your buyer want to write that for? Let me tell you a word here that is a word you guys should learn well in the coming months. Negotiate. Everything has to do with negotiation. But remember, you are now going to be up against other buyers. I'm sorry, buyers agents. Buyers are going to be talking to multiple buyers agents. So if you are mandating a year-long buyers BBEEA, I don't know how many of those will get signed. If a buyer realizes they can get one for shorter time, they may go to somebody with a shorter timeline, right? So you need to think about that before you say, here, this is my standard of practice. That's your choice. You're a realtor. You have the choice to make those determinations. But remember, I'm going to be potentially up against this other agent or this other agent. You're going to be up against another agent. And if somebody else comes in and says, yeah, I'll work with you for a month. Let's see how it works out. Okay. So there is no answer to that. That is up to you. You need to determine what is going to be your standard of practice. Okay. All right. Employment. Broker agrees to A, locate property meeting the following general description: residential, land, commercial, or other. And then it goes on to say, within the following geographical area. So other, or on line 14, geographical areas, this is in relation to the code of ethics to make sure you are not practicing outside your area of expertise, right? And this was added on to the current BB buyer broker agreement. We currently have this, it's in there. So if you're not doing commercial and you're checking the box for commercial, you're working out of your area of expertise and need to have your buyer sign off that they're okay working with you under those conditions, right? But think about geographic area. I mean, so let's see, if you work and live exclusively in Maricopa County and you decide you want to go do something up in Flagstaff, you've been up to NAU twice, it'll be fine. Let me just go ahead and go up there and show a home and get that home sold. Your license covers you there, but the code of ethics has an issue if you're practicing outside of your area of expertise. What else has an issue if you're practicing outside of your area of expertise? Does anybody know? Any guesses? Any answers? Huh?
The other agent.
The other.
Okay, how about your errors and omissions
Oh,
insurance?
Someone did just say that.
Oh, good for whoever's on chat. Congratulations.
Um,
Errors
so
and
they asked
omissions.
if you can make that just a little bit bigger. They said they have 29.
They're gonna have to do it on their screen.
Okay.
Oh, well, you know what? I can do it a little bit bigger. Let's do that. Okay. And it makes it easier for me to read. So, make sure, if you are going up to Flagstaff, it's potentially problematic. Number one, make sure you're having the conversation with your broker before you do so. Number two, if there's a problem down the road, another consideration is you may not be covered on your E&O coverage because most have exclusions for working outside your area of expertise. So keep that in line. All right, on the other line, did we lose the other line? We did, didn't we? Oh, it's there. Okay. On the other line or line 14, what you could potentially do here, depending on your relationship with your buyer and how you want to conduct your business, is have a single property address. Okay. So again, you have an investor and they want you to take them to go look at one property. You can say, okay, you know what? I will do that, but you're going to marry me for this property. If you decide to write an offer on this property, it's mine. Okay. So you can do that. You can write this for one property, right? In essence, you are not locking them into any home at any point. You are only locking them into working with you on a single property. We don't have a single property form, so this is the form I would most likely want to use. So if I do show you this home, help you negotiate the terms, and ultimately you go under contract on this home, you will owe me a commission. This is the best way to handle that. And just for those that are saying, hold on a minute, even if you don't negotiate it, again, there's no procuring cause. If you have a BBEEA and they purchase the home, you have a contract that you can go after them to get paid. Does that make sense? You would write the line on, yes, under other, or you could do the on geographical area. What else could you put under geographical area? What might you want to put under geographical area? Because you do need to put something there. The county that you work in would be a good idea. Most of you probably work most of Maricopa County. If you don't, then don't put Maricopa County, right? But what's the hazard if somebody comes to you and says, you know, I want to buy in Scottsdale, and then all of a sudden you write this just for Scottsdale and they decide they want to buy in Phoenix. This agreement is no longer really covering you.
I've been putting, Phoenix Metro / Maricopa County or whatever, you know, and then that's within my draft. But then I sometimes, if I talk to them, then it's like, oh, Mason Hill, or, you know, like add something more onto it, right?
Well, I don't know that you would need to add. If you have Maricopa County, you've covered everything. So, I mean, unless you're going down to the city of Maricopa, because then you need Pinal County. Yeah, I would, depending on where you're looking, I don't know that you have to ultra define it. I think you're better with a broader area, depending on what you're looking for, because as with any contract, you want specifics. So if you only put Mesa and Gilbert and they buy a home in Chandler, this document no longer applies to you.
Can you put more than one county?
Yes, you can put more than one county. You can more than one city. You could put the Valley of the Sun or the Metro, you know, Phoenix area, but I think Maricopa County is probably going to be cleaner because it's going to very clearly define what that was.
So if I put Phoenix and they buy in Scottsdale, I don't get paid?
Unless you modify it.
Or do the addendum?
You do the addendum is what you would do, right? But again, if they sign a BBEA with you for Phoenix and sign one with Scottsdale with somebody else, they can do that, right? They could do that. So I think probably county might be your option there.
Maybe not.
And hopefully you're working with your buyer. So I would not leave it blank. Because if you leave it blank, you leave it open to interpretation. Where are you working for them? And if you leave it blank, to me, that would be nowhere.
Melissa,
Yes.
Why couldn't you put the state of Arizona and then if they're outside of your area of expertise, you can find another realtor and give a referral?
So the question for those of you online, in case you did not hear that, is why not just put the state of Arizona? And that way, if they're going outside of your area of expertise, you could send them to a referring agent. That's fine. You don't need this document to get a referral, however. Please make sure you understand that. You do not need this document. So the fact that you have, you know, Maricopa County and then they decide to buy in Tucson or up in Prescott, you would not need this to send a referral out. All right. Now, I would not use the state of Arizona unless you actually cover more than 1 or 2 counties here. And I do know that you have, you know, your licensing in ARM or MLSs in other areas. So that's fine, but most of you do not. So please don't put the state of Arizona because it's misrepresenting what you can do, right? Hold on 1 second. We've got another question.
Someone asked, if there's a section to add more than one address, if someone wants to see 5 homes and we sign for one day.
The question is, if someone wants to see more specific addresses and you need to add more, when we get to the addendum, you will have the blank lines on there. That's what you would use, not this.
Well, that's a quick question.
Yep.
So, let's say you put on the form Phoenix, America, okay, and you sell a property in Scottsdale.
Mhm.
Home goes to closing, there's no other broker involved, no other buyer broker involved. What happens to that?
I would recommend that you do the addendum to add Scottsdale. And again, personally, folks, I would not use a single city. I would be putting something broader than a city. Too many times over my 27 years, I've had people tell me they want Scottsdale and then because of budget, they're not buying in Scottsdale, right? So, you
Am I
know.
wrong to think that only comes into play if there's an issue or somebody's refusing to pay? Or is title gonna say, oh, most of this is in Scottsdale and your BB, whatever, is Phoenix, so we're not paying you.
We're getting the question to title. I'm just gonna see what title's response is. Yeah, they're not gonna police it. Correct. It's only gonna be an issue if the buyer's trying to negate that. But here's the problem. You don't know if another agreement's been signed. So protect yourself.
Yes.
That's what I recommend you do is protect yourself. Okay, we're not gonna take, let's get through the beginning part of this form. So we're not gonna get very far here. Okay, number 16, reminder, it says, assist buyer during the transaction within the scope of broker's expertise and licensing. Not only to the buyer, but to you as well. Do not practice outside your scope. Goes back to the geographic area as well. As type of transaction, if you're not versed in commercial, do not do a commercial deal. You are not a licensed contractor, so don't assist them in what you believe certain things might cost to repair. Ooh, how many have heard that before? These are all pitfalls you can fall into. Please be careful with that. Okay, number 17. Let's see, I'm gonna have to scroll this up just a bit. Hold on. Ooh, oh dear. That's gonna be a problem. There we go. Agency relationship. So this is not changed, right? So the agency relationship between buyer and broker shall be line 18 as set forth in the real estate agency disclosure and election form, the ready form. 19 other. Not sure what other would apply. I think most brokers will agree here, but do check with your broker if you're not with Realty One Group. For Realty One Group, please use line 18. It should always be marked and the ready form completed. All right. Must have that. Property viewings. Buyer agrees to work exclusively with broker and be accompanied by broker on buyer's first visit to any property. If broker does not accompany buyer on the first visit to any property, including a model home, new home lot, or quote, open house held by a builder, please note that says builder, seller, or other real estate broker, buyer acknowledges that builder, seller, or seller's broker may refuse to compensate broker, which will eliminate any credit against the agreed upon broker compensation below. Please don't ask questions. I know you're probably got some there. Buyer agrees to review the Arizona Department. Okay, I'll get to the next one in just a second. Let me go back to this. So this is the don't cheat on me clause. All right. I said I was not going to go through scripts, but if I'm sitting in a buyer consultation, sitting across from them, going through this with them clause by clause to make sure they understand, I'm probably gonna smile, a sweet smile. And then, and this is all Leah, you gotta love this, wink, wink, but you don't plan on cheating on me, right? So we're good. Don't worry about this. This won't even come into play. You just call me every time you want to go look at a home, and I will make myself available to you to ensure we can go ahead and get in there. Wink, wink, right? Make sure they understand not to cheat on you. Now, the last time when Leah did this last week, a lot of people said, wait a minute, that means we have to have the agent to go into an open house. No, okay? But they need to understand they can't cheat on you, okay? They can go into an open house, look at the open house. If they have questions, who should they call? You. Should they spend an hour talking to the agent there? No. But does procuring cause exist anymore? No. Have them call you though. That's what you're there for, right? You're there to answer their questions. You're there to negotiate on their behalf. You're there to show them property. Now, new homes. This is the opportunity for you to explain. Buyer acknowledges that builder, I'm going to skip here, may refuse to compensate broker. Why might they refuse to compensate the broker?
With them when they walked in that.
On the first showing. Everything is in this paragraph that you need as an agent. We've provided you the language. Communicate it to them, please. Talk to them. Help them understand. Don't just go, oh, I'm just going to stop by. Oh, I like the flag out here. Let's just go take a peek at what these homes are. Oh my God, I love this home. Do you understand you are now going to be paying me my commission? Because you're under contract with me, right? So please make sure that is conveyed. All right. Any questions there really quickly? Yes.
So just to confirm, if a buyer is gonna go to an open house, they can go by themselves, even if it's the first visit.
Yeah.
They want to.
Mhm.
But if the buyer's gonna go to a new build open house, they have to have an agent with them, otherwise there could be an issue with compensation.
Yeah, folks online, are you hearing that question? Can somebody just either
No,
unmute?
not really.
Okay, so the question was, if a buyer goes to an open house, is that okay without you? The answer is yes. But to a new build, the first time they go to a new build, you must join them at that new build. Some of our builders allow you to register them online. That's a possibility, but in general, you should be there with them. And the first thing you need to do when you walk in there, I always look around, scan the table. There's usually papers sitting in a little folder, like on the table, that says agent registration. Grab it and start filling it out. Come with your own pen, be ready to fill that out and register that buyer. Under no circumstances should you be going to an open house, tour your buyer through there and walk away and not register your buyer. The first thing you need to do is register that buyer there. They're not registered, they're not registered. Okay, one more question, then we're gonna finish this. Chloe, I'll get to you in a second. Yeah, so if you do a registration, the on-site agent should be signing it and then giving you a copy of it, okay? If they don't give you a copy of it, you all have your phones. You should have Adobe Scan on your phones. Don't just take a picture, make it a PDF. You should all have some type of PDF scanner on your phone. If you've got an iPhone, you've got at least one or two versions of this a couple of different ways. Chloe, go ahead.
So like a buyer cannot take a copy of this contract with them to a builder?
Great. No,
No.
this does not grant you to comply with builder regulations. The big sign in the front of the builder's model home still says you must enter that home with your buyer on their first visit. Now, again, some of our builders allow you to register them. Some of them aren't paying co-brokes anyway, so it doesn't matter, right? So You need to understand that, and you need to know what those builders are doing. But that you have raised a great point. I think when you get this signed by your buyer, ask to borrow their phone. If they have a notes section in their phone, I would click on the notes section. I would title it Buyer Broker Exclusive Employment Agreement. Take a photo of this and say, there you go. You have this now. Anytime you're asked, yes, here's the answer. Yes, I have a BBEEA, right? Put it on their phone. They have it with them. Done. There's no question they signed that. Because guess what? If they're at an open house, what do you think that open house agent is going to ask? Do you have a buyer broker agreement? Oh, yes, in fact, I do. Let me show you on my form. There you go. And they say, well, who's your agent? Well, let me give you this. If I don't have their information, it's right here, right? So they know, in fact, that you are. Now, I'm not going to take that from somebody, but you as an open house agent, that's what you want to ask, right? You want to know if they have a buyer broker agreement. So let's keep going though here real quickly. Let's see, line 24, buyer agrees to review the Arizona Department of Real Estate buyer advisory to assist in buyer's inspections and investigations. Buyer advisory, right? There is it's showing as a link there, but obviously it's not a link on this document, but this is something I would give a hard copy of at your buyer consultation. For those of you who've been in my other classes this last month, I have said, give them a hard copy and then email them. A link to this document is more helpful because it has the hyperlinks available. Makes their due diligence easier for them. You can find it on aaronline.com website, and your clients can register to receive notices when the form and links are updated. I don't know if you realize that, but if you don't, please go on to AAR yourself, register to get those updates so you know when the form has been updated as well. But I've always told buyers, look, this is a great form when you're buying a home, but guess what? It's even better after you own the home. Something happens in your neighborhood, something comes up with the HOA, your neighbor's causing a problem, you're dealing with some issue and you're trying to figure out where to go. That buyer advisory has so many different links in it. They can find out who they might need to contact. So again, they can get alerted on updates to this form. And that's when AAR actually updates all those links. They take out old links and correct them and put new links in there. So some of you have the link to this in your signature line. What a great idea, so that it's readily available. Please, buyers, connect here. You can get the, the buyer advisory. Again, some buyers prefer a printed copy, so I would still bring a copy to the consultation, follow up with the email version. For those of you in my office, we only need the last page. So if you will print out and save just, I think it's page 13, to use on your signing program, we do not need the whole thing. The reason I'm telling you that is if you like sending one consolidated email when you're sending out a buyer package, if you add that buyer advisory, because it has so much data on there, it is absorbed as a picture and it becomes sometimes a 9 megabyte document just by itself. So if you're sending to people on Cox or Yahoo or some of these accounts, they're never getting your offer, by the way. It doesn't show up in their inboxes. So that's why I'm suggesting just use page 13 so that your offer actually gets through. And if you're not following up with a phone call or a text saying, I just sent the offer, did you get it? Please do that. Okay. All right. Let's see where I am. What a concept, right? Okay. Broker compensation. Look, it's in big, bold block text.
We like that.
Must be important, right? It's bold, it's big, and in all caps. So it must be really important. In case that was not enough, it requires initials right underneath it. And what does it say? Broker compensation is not set by law, nor by any board, association of realtors, multiple listing service, or in any manner other than as fully negotiated between broker and buyer in this agreement, okay? It is negotiable between your buyer and with you. So please don't let me get a phone call that says, they told me that this is what everybody does, that your office requires it. This is an office policy. There is no such thing, right? None. Don't ask me what to put here. It is up to you, right? It is up to your negotiation with your clients. Retainer fee, just from a sea of hands here in the room, how many of you have used a retainer fee in the past with your buyers? Okay, none of you. Not many of you utilize the retainer fee. See, look, that was already in my text there. But if you do, please understand that those fees are payable to whom? The broker. Thank you, broker. There you go. You may decide you want to start charging these just for any upfront work you plan to do. But ultimately it says pay to broker, right? Agrees to pay broker. We want to make sure that this is how it is set up to be paid, right? So this, so let's say your retainer fee is going to be 1 cookie, right? Okay, this is what you are going to charge up front. Actually, let me read this section first before I go down here. Retainer fee, check if applicable. Buyer agrees to pay broker a non-refundable retainer fee in the amount of blank within 5 days or blank days of execution of this agreement, which is earned when paid. So immediately when paid for initial consultation, research, and other services. This fee shall or shall not be credited against the broker compensation below. So, ultimately, let's say your retainer fee is going to be 1 cookie. Okay, that is what you're going to charge up front or within 5 days of them signing this. Ultimately, they do close on a home and that home is paying 3 cookies. So depending on how you want this to go, that 1 cookie could be in excess of that 3 cookies, right? Or the 1 cookie could be subtracted from the 3 cookies and thereby you would get 2 cookies at close of escrow. So however you want to conduct your business, just know those are the differences, all right? Let's get on to broker compensation. If buyer or entity owned or controlled by buyer closes escrow on a transaction for the purpose, exchange, or option of a property, buyer agrees to compensate broker as follows. And this is called broker compensation. Check 1 and only 1 and fill in the compensation. So this is, whoops, did I miss something? Oh, no, here, I have to actually go over this. This is a really important update. I did miss something. So if buyer or entity owned or controlled by buyer or entity owned by buyer. So we've had situations where buyers were getting kind of smart in certain circumstances. If they were members of multiple LLCs or trusts, or were going to rename things as they go, they could ultimately scheme their way out of paying the buyer broker compensation. So we've made sure that we are including any entity owned by those buyers. It is not foolproof, of course, not completely fail-safe. Owned or controlled is different from member or signer on behalf of those, but we did our best to add that layer of protection for you, right? Does that make sense? Okay, good. So now, part of what we were referencing earlier, check only 1. And I know some of you are not going to read this big, bold, capitalized instruction here, and you're going to try to put more than 1 thing here, only 1, and fill in the compensation. So first is percentage of the full purchase price or exchange value, or dollars, or other. Well, not entirely sure what other would be. So I've heard, this is actually not for me, this is Leah. She's heard some pretty funny stories as a broker. I suspected there could be goats or diamonds or some other weird things involved in this, but at the end of the day, it is most likely it will be lines 34 and 35. So there you go. And remember, those lines are very short, and they are really short for a reason. We don't want you creating some superfluous language on here. It needs to be an ascertainable amount, okay? Ascertainable. A single set of numbers, not this or that, or this plus this, just one clear number, right? Hopefully everybody understands that. All right. Lines, let's see, I gotta go down here. So this is the problem. There we go.
Melissa,
Yes.
I have a question. On
Yes.
that last one, other, let's say you took a retainer.
Uh-huh.
Wouldn't you use that one or couldn't you use that one to say other, that you're charging, let's say 3 apples minus the,
No, because it already says it above.
it does.
Shall or shall not be credited against the compensation below. So you don't need to put that
Okay,
down
where
there.
do you put that it is? Okay.
It says shall or shall not.
Yeah.
Shall or shall not be. Does title get that? Title has that. They're the ones that are doing it. So we want to make sure they understand that. So
If people put, 1 cookie plus $500, what couldn't they want it?
because well, you could put 1 cookie plus $500. That is an ascertainable amount.
Yeah.
Right? So that's fine, right? But you can't put 1 cookie or 1.5 cookies.
Right.
You can't put an or, right? So the reason for that is if for some reason you're trying to cover something else, I would recommend in that scenario possibly to cover it using the retainer fee if you're trying to look for that little bit extra, or just take it into a dollar amount.
Oh, I'm just curious, you could use the other line, you know.
You
It's supposed to be plus something, but you can't say like up to 4% or up to.
No,
cookies.
It has to be a very clearly ascertainable amount. So as long as I can create a dollar amount from that, yes. I think most brokers will not want that.
Closing on
But if it's,
four before.
so on, like based on sale price, so under $1 million is 2.5, and over $1 million is 2%.
Cookies?
Yeah.
So the question was, could you use other to give a range if they're looking at a property, say under 2 million, that it's a certain amount of cookies, versus if it's above that, it's a different amount of cookies. Again, as long as that is ascertainable, I believe that that is acceptable. So, okay.
Melissa,
Yes, last
retainer fee can be a percentage when you don't know what the total is gonna be. How are you gonna do that?
No, if you notice, there is no percentage there. It is a dollar amount.
So it's not gonna be.
It's going to be a dollar amount, and
Right.
whether or not that dollar amount is then reduced from what the compensation is. So the question was on the retainer fee, could it be a percentage because you wouldn't know that amount? And the comment is, of course, no. On line 28, it does very specifically say dollar amount. Hold on a second, folks in here. It's really hard for people online because it's just making it sound hard for them to hear.
I have a question, 2 buyers not married, do both of them need to fill out a separate form? Or can they be on the same form?
No, they can be on the same form. There are 2 lines. Marriage is not required anywhere on this. You have investors, you have parents and children. No, so there's no requirement of marriage to be on the document. Okay, let me go to the next page if I can figure out how to get to the next page. This is really hard when I can't.
Right? A little dot in the middle. Oh, no, right there, right there. Or just go to, yeah, click down. Just go down.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's see where I am. 37 to 38. The broker compensation shall be in US currency and paid at the time of and as a condition of closing for purchase or exchange, or is otherwise agreed upon in writing. That is kind of a really small line in the grand scheme of things, but that is very, very important. Let me repeat. paid at the time of and as a condition of closing for purchase or exchange. There are a lot of arguments, and I'm not going to go into them. We will cover them when we discuss compensation forms next week. Code of Ethics, Standards of Practice 1616. You must be cautious to make sure that your negotiations about commission are not interfering with the transaction. So what could ultimately happen is you can get all the way to closing, to the end, and now you have a buyer refusing to pay you. This is where this language kind of steps in and assists with that, right? Now, ultimately, you do still have a binding contract, and there are ways to pursue them otherwise, but this is as a condition. So they are agreeing that this is a condition of closing, and for them to close on the property. So like any other closing costs, if they don't have them available or they are refusing to pay them, then they are in breach of contract, and the deal obviously cannot close without payment of those fees. So just make sure you understand that this line is there for your protection, but you also probably need to explain that to your clients as you're reading through this. It is a condition of closing. Now, we have not seen this work its way through, but I would think most title folks would be looking at it. It does say it's a condition of closing. And yes, for those that are not aware, buyer broker agreements will be sent to title, right? Title will need to receive those to know where those cookies are coming from and how many cookies total you're getting.
And to the lender.
And to the no, not to the lender unless there are concessions. The lender doesn't need to know that unless there are concessions in the contract coming to you. So, well, it's going to be up to your lender, but they should not need it. It's not a part of it. That's correct. No, that's right. You're right. You're right. The lender does need to see it because the buyer is responsible for it. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah. You don't
So
want
it's
your-
part of the buyer's, it's part of the buyer's amount of dollars that they're required. So yes.
You want to calculate the money.
Any comments from title here?
We'll have an easy bake oven up here making those cookies.
Title said they're gonna have an easy bake oven up here making those cookies. So there you go. They'll be baking cookies here just for us. So again, this is here for your protection. Now, do you have to stop the contract? No, you could allow it to go through. That's up to you. You then can pursue it in a court because you do have a licensed contract. So, all right. Questions
I've got
online?
two. If the agreement so say there's a buyer broker in place, but the buyers are remote and wants their son to visit the home and take a look. Does the son need to be on all agreements, even though he's just providing feedback?
The question was, can a relative or a representative for the buyer, if the buyer is out of town or out of state, act on behalf of the buyer without being on the agreements? Absolutely. That's up to the buyer. They do not need to be on the agreement. The only people that would be on the agreement would be the people purchasing the home. Okay.
Second one, if they're
And then we're gonna have to stop. Go ahead.
If they're in breach, could seller cancel and get the earnest money?
So the question is, if the buyer is in breach.
Didn't specify who.
Yeah, they're not gonna pay the buyer broker.
So if the buyer is in breach because they don't have the money to pay the broker, could the seller get
The earnest money?
the
Could they
earnest
cancel and
money?
get-
Yes. So if the buyer goes in breach and the deal falls apart, there would be a lot of different people being owed money. So, yes, so folks, it's 11:15. I'm trying to get through this before 12 o'clock, and I think we've gotten through not even the first agreement. So I'm going to stop taking questions right now, and then we'll answer questions when we get through the next agreement. Let me get through all the way through this one at least, okay? Let's see, lines 39 and 40. Compensation from a seller or seller's broker. A seller or seller's broker may offer compensation to broker. Buyer authorizes broker to accept compensation from seller or seller's broker which shall be credited against buyer's compensation. If seller or sellers, well, let me stop there for just a second. The form most likely used for this, but could be one of two, is the CAB form, the compensation agreement between brokers. We will go over that next week, or you'll see it on Thursday if you're on Leah's class, but how it is being credited. So let's say the buyer signed a form. Let's say they are going to pay 3 cookies, but now I found out either the seller or the listing broker is offering 3 cookies. If that is the case, the buyer won't owe me any cookies at close of escrow, right? Let's say the listing broker or seller is offering 2 cookies and buyer broker agreement is for 3 cookies, then the credit is 2 cookies and the buyer will owe me 1 cookie, okay? If seller or seller's broker offer of compensation is greater than the broker compensation, broker shall be paid the broker compensation and the balance shall be credited to the buyer to the extent allowed by the buyer's lender, okay? So this is probably one of the biggest changes in this form. Before, you would have been paid the greater of what was being offered. If you have 2 cookies on your buyer broker, but the builder or listing broker or seller offered you 3 cookies, on the current buyer broker, you would be entitled to 3 cookies. This is different on August 1st. You cannot be paid in excess of what this agreement states. So if your agreement states 2 cookies, you can only be paid 2 cookies. Any balance thereafter goes to your buyer, assuming they can utilize those funds, again, up to the lender, right? So let's see. If seller or seller's broker's offer of compensation is less than the broker compensation, buyer may request the seller to pay broker compensation as part of an offer to purchase the property. Any broker compensation not paid by seller or seller's broker shall be paid to buyer. Okay, now next, kind of the opposite way, buyer broker says we're getting 3 cookies. Listing broker or seller is paying 2 cookies. Our buyer still owes us 1 cookie, right? You understand that? In a big box, because it was written before the recent change, it says notice, unless modified by VA regulations. And if you are aware, the VA has modified these regulations, right? But it says VA finance transactions shall be conditioned upon broker compensation being paid by the seller or seller's broker. As of until very recently, it was actually a violation of VA lending policies for a buyer to pay the buyer broker compensation. They have not changed this law. Please know that. They have put a temporary suspension on this regulation. As it currently stands until further notice, your buyer brokers with your VA buyers are safe. Buyers are now allowed the right to pay you your cookies per this agreement, okay? It is legislation that has to go through Congress to change a VA regulation. So they have put a temporary suspension on that, right? Failure to complete. Once an acceptable property is located, buyer agrees to act in good faith to acquire the property and conduct any investigations of the property that buyer deems material and or important. If completion of any transaction is prevented by buyer's breach or with the consent of buyer other than is provided in the purchase contract, the broker compensation shall be due and payable by buyer. This is kind of a scary clause, right? So, make sure you fully understand what it is saying. Now, I think most of us in days past were a little bit forgiving if the breach occurred outside the buyer's reach, meaning that it was really a lender's fault, right? But ultimately, because the buyer chose the lender and the lender did not do something, and now the buyer is in breach because of that lack of performance, probably not looking to pursue my buyer for commission at that point. But at the end of the day, there is this little clause that is there in an effort to protect you. Really, this is for buyers that refuse to close on the day of closing for whatever reason. This gives you the opportunity to collect on that compensation should that become necessary, right? Does that make sense? And I hate to say, as a managing broker, I have heard that on several occasions. You know what? Decided we're not going to close. Do you guys know what our first comment, my first comment to those realtors, to their buyers? Talk to an attorney. Please have your buyers speak with an attorney. The repercussions from them not closing are of a wide variety, okay? And I'm not taking questions here, but please know that'll be the first thing that I will say. All right, compensation after expiration date. After the expiration date of this agreement, buyer agrees to pay broker compensation if within blank calendar days after expiration date, buyers enters into an agreement to purchase, exchange, or option any property shown or negotiated by broker on behalf of buyer during the term of this agreement. 2, buyer closes escrow on a property pursuant to a purchase contract that was executed during the term of this agreement. Or 3, buyer closes escrow on a property for which escrow was opened during the term of this agreement. So I think the last two are pretty clearly stated. Obviously, if they are in an executed contract that closes, you are entitled to compensation even if this agreement has expired, right? Basically, it continues on because the purchase contract protects you and ensures you get paid. Does that make sense? Everybody understand that, right? The first one is a little more wonky. Love your terms, Leah. So this is done to make sure that the buyer and seller don't meet with one another and they tell each other, you know, this is expiring on this day and my listing agreement is expiring on this day. So we could close escrow together if we just wait a couple of weeks and our agents will be totally out of it. That is why this is in place, right? It's to help protect you from those unsavory cheaters that are trying to work around this agreement around their respective brokers. So they won't have to pay you your commissions. Now, ultimately, everybody asks, how many days should that be, right? That is up to you. How many days do you want to monitor this? Do you get the feeling that the buyer is doing something that they should not be doing, or that they're trying to cheat on you or set up a side deal that you are not catching wind of? The most common we see is 30 days on the current buyer broker, but could very easily see this going to 60, 90, or 120 days. It is up to you. Now, as for tracking this, remember these buyer broker agreements will go into SkySlope and we will be holding these documents. So they will be on file for what is that, 7 years, whatever it is that the department requires. So those documents will be held and you could come back to them and say, hey, I'm coming back after you. That will be up to you, not us, right? But that is there. So you could look at that as an option. All right, I have to get more space here. Okay, listings. Broker shall show property listings that fit the buyer's criteria regardless of the compensation offered to broker by selling or seller's broker unless instructed otherwise by buyer in writing. If necessary, buyer instructs broker to negotiate the broker compensation to be paid by seller or seller's broker. These negotiations shall not jeopardize, delay, or interfere with the initiation, processing, or finalizing of a transaction. Okay, this one is challenging because of the way we now have to do these forms. The comments right now are going to be Leah's, and I will add to them. You'll hear a little difference here in just a second. But Leah's first thought was she was very gung-ho. Originally, for those that have sat through some of our office meetings, we had Jim as a participant, Jim Sexton and Wendy Shaw that were both on these forms committee. Originally, there was a box that said, buyer instructed not to show me homes. You could check the box if the seller or listing broker is unwilling to compensate them. But in their wisdom, the forms committee kind of looked at this form as a, how do you really know? And they sold Lee on this, they sold me on this as well. I think this is a really important point. How do you really know that a seller specifically will not pay a buyer broker until you've entered into those negotiations, right? Until the the seller has seen the totality of that offer. Because if at the end of the day, the seller is netting what they want to net, and the net incorporates them paying a buyer broker's compensation, then why would they reject that? Okay, but if you call up front and simply ask, what are you offering? And they tell you $0 or 0 cookies, right? And you then go tell your buyer, we are not going to look at this home per your instructions. They may have missed out on an opportunity. So like Leah, I too have been converted. I'm going to have this conversation with my buyer, and I'm actually going to suggest that they don't instruct me not to show them homes, and that they understand that at the end of the day, it is the culmination of all of their offer terms and conditions that make or break a deal with the seller, right? Whether or not it's going to cover the buyer broker compensation is going to be part of that total offer package. And again, Leah's doing this on Thursday. I'm going to do it next Tuesday. We're going to discuss those compensation forms. So, and you will hear next week, Leah is more heavily in favor of one of the compensation forms over the other. And one of the reasons is for this line, these negotiations shall not jeopardize, delay, or interfere with the initiation, processing, or finalizing of a transaction. So one of the forms is more susceptible to jeopardizing this. So if my buyer is ready to make an offer, and I did not call the listing agent first, or heck, I did try to call, and I still could not reach them to save my soul. And then we put an offer together, and I'm still trying to get that written confirmation or the CAB form, just so you know, that the listing broker is going to pay me something. Can I withhold submitting the offer on behalf of the buyer while waiting for the listing broker? Probably not, because you cannot delay or interfere with, right? Because that would delay or interfere with that. So instead, by using the seller compensation addendum, I think we will eliminate some of these concerns, as well as it taken off of us as the agents entirely, and is a negotiation process between buyer and seller opportunity. It's an opportunity to negotiate. Okay, so the thing is, I do agree with Leah that this might very well be the way to go. I think the point, though, is that doesn't mean you don't try. And those of you that are listing agents, please answer your phones, right? Please be ready to answer your phones. If you're taking a listing and then you call me and tell me that you're traveling for the next 2 weeks, my question to you is, who is taking your phone calls and how is that in your listing, right? How is somebody finding out that information? Please, please do not take a listing and then just disappear, okay? But it is an opportunity to negotiate. So I do think the CAB form can be useful, because why not? If I already know they're willing to give 2.5 cookies, at least I have a base. I have something I'm working with. Then I can add to that or subtract from that, whatever I need to do to help my buyer out. Okay. But if you cannot reach that listing agent and you do not know that, turn right, figure out another way to go, because you got to get your offer submitted. Okay. Does that make sense? All right, I'm going to move on. I got to get to another page here. We can keep scrolling. Come on. There we go. Notice, if buyer decides they do not wish to view property listings unless the seller or seller's broker is offered adequate compensation to broker, the buyer must make that instruction to broker in writing. If you notice on this page, down on lines 77 through 79, you have lines for that to be in writing. If in fact that is what they want to do, you have a space to put that down there. Again, as I just said, I do not recommend you do this. I think it is better in your buyer's best interest that you look at the totality of their offer and you try to put something together for them. But part of that is having that initial conversation that they understand ultimately they are responsible for paying your commission, right? So it's all a part of that. All right. Equal housing, nothing new here. I am gonna read this, but the only thing that changes you can see the red there. So brokers' policy is to abide by all local, state, and federal laws prohibiting discrimination against individual or group of individuals. Broker may not disclose the racial, ethnic, or religious composition of any neighborhood, community, or building, nor whether persons with disabilities are housed in any home or facility, except the broker may identify housing facilities meeting the needs of a disabled buyer. For more information, consult Fair Housing Advisory. We get asked more often from the listing side where the seller asks if they have to disclose the existence of a group home in the neighborhood. Not only should you not, but you must not disclose that. On the flip side, we will not disclose that either, right? If the buyer has questions or concerns, you know what to tell them about due diligence. Get out there, drive around the neighborhood, ask questions, seek information from the buyer advisory, et cetera, et cetera. Other potential buyers. Buyer consents and acknowledges that other potential buyers represented by broker may consider, make offers on, or acquire an interest in the same or similar properties as buyer is seeking. This is not unusual. It's very common with Realty One Group agents listed or have multiple buyers looking at one or the same properties, honestly. Release of brokers. Buyer recognizes, acknowledges, and agrees that broker is not qualified nor licensed to offer advice on financial, legal, or tax matters regarding real estate transactions. Those are related services. Broker, if requested, may provide buyer the names of third-party professionals who claim to perform related services. Buyer is instructed to independently investigate all potential third-party professionals and use their sole discretion in selecting which third-party professionals to hire, if any. Buyer, and this is in bold, expressly releases, holds harmless, and indemnifies broker from any and all liability and responsibility regarding buyer's selection and use of third-party professionals to perform related services or buyer's election not to use the services of such third-party professionals. And then there's buyer initials here immediately below this. So obviously it's important because we have all stepped outside of our areas of expertise, and we've attempted to tell them things that they should be doing and how they should be doing it and who they should be using. So now this requires a buyer's initials. They've added that below this section as well, right? So this is to make sure you understand, give them options, but it is their choice, right? All right, we are going to move on. Additional terms and conditions. Ideally, this will be empty, but there are certain circumstances like we discussed above. If you do get specific instructions from your buyer, not to show them certain homes, that will go in there. All right, alternative dispute resolution. Whoops, that did not let me do that. I guess it's just, is it really just this? Oh, it continues. Okay. Buyer and broker, the parties agree to mediate any dispute or claim arising out of or relating to this agreement in accordance with the mediation procedures of the applicable state or local realtors association or otherwise agreed. All mediation costs shall be paid equally to the parties in the event that mediation does not resolve all disputes or claims. The unresolved disputes or claims shall be submitted for binding arbitration. In such event, the parties shall agree upon an arbiter and cooperate in the scheduling of an arbitration hearing. If the parties are unable to agree on an arbiter, then the dispute shall be submitted to the American Arbitration Association in accordance with the AAA arbitration rules for the real estate industry. The decision of the arbiter should be final and non-appealable. Judgment on the award rendered by the arbiter may be entered in any court of competent jurisdiction. Notwithstanding the foregoing, either party may opt out of binding arbitration within 30 days after the conclusion of the mediation conference by notice to the other, and in such an event, either party shall have the right to resort to court action. It's quite funny how often people jump straight to court, not realizing that this little provision in our contract exists regarding mediation. What's kind of interesting is that I guess it is handled by the purchase contract, is that there are certain circumstances that are exclusions. I would expect those would actually work here as well. So if your amount of cookies is less than what is curable in small claims court, I would argue that you could actually bypass ADRE and go directly to small claims court. That would be an exemption that exists. But outside that, you would start with mediation, and we are not going straight to attorneys. Obviously, the next line talks about attorney fees and costs. Whoops, I'm sorry. Nope, the next thing talks about the parties. Gotta love this. You're gonna love this. All in red, brand new. Here we go. The parties agree that any and all disputes or claims will be brought in the party's individual capacity and not as a plaintiff or class member in any purported class, collective, representative, or other consolidated proceeding. The parties hereby waive their right to commence, become a party to, or remain a participant in any group, representative, class, collective, or hybrid class collective action in any proceeding, and the arbiter shall not preside over any form of a group, representative, or class collective proceeding. Well, you know damn well that an attorney wrote this and they wrote it in a specific contrast to what we have with all the NAR settlements. This is saying that the buyer won't participate in any class action lawsuits. Good luck preventing that, but hey, they signed this, right? So that's where we start. Or that's where we go with that. Attorney fees and costs in any non-realtor association proceedings to enforce the compensation due to broker pursuant to this agreement, the prevailing party shall be awarded their reasonable attorney fees and arbitration costs. Arizona law, the agreement should be covered by Arizona law and jurisdiction is exclusively conferred on the state of Arizona. Please, please, please do not look at what New York, California, Nevada, Montana, any other state is doing. You are covered under the laws in the state of Arizona, and you must comply with those laws. And that is what this document is covered through. So, copies and counterparts. This agreement may be executed by facsimile or other electronic means, and in any number of counterparts. A fully executed facsimile or electronic copy of the agreement should be treated as an original agreement. This entire agreement. So we'll just counterpart. I mean, you may have more than one copy. That's fine. You may have multiple people in multiple places. You stack them all together, they become one document, right? This is the entire agreement, and any addenda and attachment shall constitute the entire agreement between buyer and broker and shall supersede any other written or oral agreements between buyer and broker and can be modified only by writing signed by buyer and broker. Invalidity or unenforceability of one or more provisions of this agreement shall not affect any other provisions of this agreement. That's really important. And this does say, this is really important because we've had this just recently. Buyer warrants that buyer has the legal capacity, full power and authority to enter into this agreement and consummate the transaction contemplated hereby on buyer's own behalf or on behalf of the party buyer represents as appropriate. So if they don't actually have that capacity, the rest of the contract is not void. Remember that, right? The line above says one section does not violate the rest. So you could have a huge issue if the person signing this actually does not have the authority to sign it because they've entered into that agreement. Okay. So acceptance, buyer hereby agrees to all the terms and conditions set forth and acknowledges receipt of this agreement. Please, 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 if you are meeting a buyer and getting them to sign this, either take a photo of it on your phone, immediately send it to them, or bring a second copy that you are signing together at the same time. Make sure they are identical. You could, of course, go back and send it to them, but it must be the first thing they are doing because they are accepting that they have a copy of this agreement. Wow. Okay. I have a few more documents to go over and we have 20 minutes. I'm not going to take questions right now because we answered a lot of them. Do you have a bunch of questions there?
I've got two.
Are they very simple questions?
Well,
Let's make them.
kind of, can the buyer agree to give the difference in compensation to their agent? You know how you were talking about any excess goes to the buyer?
The question is, can the buyer agree to give additional compensation to the buyer broker? So let's say you had you had a buyer broker agreement for 2 cookies and 3 cookies were offered, you would have to do the addendum at the end of this. But again, that has to come from your buyer. That is not gonna come from you. Please know that. All right. The other question?
It was pretty similar to that. If the
Okay.
seller's offering to.
Let's go over this. All right, so buyer broker agreement to show property. I love this polyagentess, okay? So they swiped, whoops, I'm on the wrong thing. Where did I go here? Uh-oh. Buyer broker agreement to show property. Oh, well, that is not good. Oh, maybe I didn't print out anything. Okay, polyagentess. We're just gonna look at the document. I didn't print out any notes. So, buyer broker agreement to show property. You've got the buyer, the broker, and the agent's name. Notice to buyer, all realtors are required to have a signed written agreement prior to showing a home to a buyer. Buyer engages broker for the purpose of viewing property and providing other real estate services at buyer's discretion that may include contract negotiation and advocacy services through a real estate transaction. The term of this agreement, you've got a start and an end date. Property, again, we have very similar notes from the other one. Buyer instructs broker. You don't have the geographic here, which is interesting. But I probably, you can add other if you're doing a specific thing. Agency, same. Broker compensation, again, bold block print, not set by law nor any board or association. And then we go on to have the check only one, right? So check whether it's a percentage, a dollar amount, or other. Broker compensation shall be due and paid at the time of and as a condition of close of escrow. Buyer authorizes broker to accept compensation from seller or seller's broker, which shall be credited against broker compensation. Broker will not receive any amount greater than broker compensation from any source for services provided in this agreement, or from any source for services provided in this agreement. Buyer showing instructions. Broker shall show property using listings. This is pretty much the same, right? Whoop, let me go back up. Sorry about that. Did not mean to go over that. I was just wanting to get to the bottom of that form. Okay, so buyer showing instructions, same. Buyer hereby agrees to this. Again, this is not an exclusive employment agreement. If you do not write the contract, you do not get paid. Very, very simple. Any short questions about this? I'll take about 2 or 3 questions. Again, I said earlier, when we were in, we talked to a lot of the folks working on the committee. The challenge was, you're in an open house, somebody comes in, wants to see the home down the street. You're not gonna get them to fill out an entire buyer broker exclusive employment agreement to go look at the home down the street. You're not. They're not gonna go through that and go over that whole thing with you. Now, you need to be doing this with your agency form. The 2 should be together. You do need to have agency on there because you need to explain who you are representing. It's not the agreement. This is the agreement. But let's say they want to see the home down the street. Why not take that opportunity? This is a great way. Guess what? On the bottom of this, you get all their contact information. And don't skimp out on that. Get their contact information. Right? They're signing a document. I'm sorry, we have to have all these lines filled in. It's your broker requirement. There you go. We have to have that information because you've got to fill it in SkySlope when you enter it into SkySlope, right? You've got to have name, email, phone number. So get that information because guess what? You want to follow up with them. You want to set an appointment for a buyer consultation. But going down the street is showing them you're going to work for them. Does that make sense?
Why doesn't this have the property on it?
Because it doesn't matter what property it is. Doesn't count unless you write the contract. It's
Okay.
not needed.
So someone comes into a house and they'll see 1, 2, 3 Main across the street, say, okay, do this, go there and show them, they're like, great, thanks, okay, bye. And then I call them the next day and they're like, oh, my sister's an agent. You
Yep.
just wrote the contract, then what?
Nothing.
You're out. Then this-
Congratulations.
You're out.
You're out.
You're out. Okay, so it's just to show property, but you have to, it doesn't mean you're gonna get paid.
You only get paid if you write the contract. If you do not write the purchase contract, this means nothing. All this is,
Right.
well, again,
I mean, good for them, it's been tiny.
but it's an opportunity to set that next appointment. Now, some agents may decide, you know what, I'm gonna go out with them a couple of weeks and do this. That is up to them. It is your choice, right? But I can totally see this at an open house, and you've got 3 homes in the neighborhood that you've got listed on your sheets in front of you, and they say, oh my gosh, this one has a pool. Oh, I wish I could see that one. Well, you can. We'd be happy to show you that one. I need you to sign this. We don't have time to go into our entire buyer presentation. We'd like to share that with you at another time, but let's get you into there so you can see it. It's a great opportunity to show that you are willing to work for them. Or if you've got a team and there are 2 or 3 of you there, let me have one of our other agents here go take you over there, right? So it's a great opportunity, but I would not recommend doing it long-term. Yeah.
So this form is only valid if we take them out to see the property and they want to submit an offer.
Right.
And then they accept it, that's where we.
So
we're-
here's
we're
the thing.
saying to-
You cannot, beginning August 1st, take somebody to see a property unless you have a buyer broker agreement. You have 2 choices: an exclusive employment agreement or an agreement to show property.
So you could use either one.
You could use either one. And again, if you've got somebody that is hesitating to go anywhere with you, this opportunity exists to open the door. You cannot open a door for a buyer beginning August 1st without an agreement. And within 72 hours of having this filled out, you are going into Sky Slope and putting it into Sky Slope.
Has virtual showings been addressed?
Oh, you mean from Zillow?
No, like, I'm gonna go there and video call you because
Yeah.
you're in Kentucky.
Doesn't matter, you need to have this. You cannot show property under the NAR settlement without an agreement, okay? All right. So we've still got a few minutes. Unrepresented buyer disclosure. This is a new form. This is, they swiped left. They don't want representation. That's fine. But let's talk about that, right? Top of this talks about buyer, and it says clearly unrepresented buyer. So over to the side, unrepresented buyer. Seller is the seller. Seller's broker is, in this case, Realty One Group for most of you, acting through and your agent name and then the address of the property that they are wanting to write an offer on. This form is used. Hey guys, can I have it quiet for just a few more minutes? I'm trying to get through this last form. So the address of the property they want to write an offer, the only time you would use this is when somebody wants to write an offer on your listing, right? So they do not want representation. It says very clearly, seller, broker informed unrepresented buyer of their right to hire a buyer broker who would represent only them. However, unrepresented buyer has elected not to be represented by a buyer broker in the purchase of the premises and acknowledges the following. Representation. Seller broker only represents seller in the sale of the premises and does not represent unrepresented buyer. Seller broker will communicate with unrepresented buyer, may provide unrepresented buyer with transaction documents, and may conduct other activities to accomplish the sale of the premises. However, all such activities are performed solely on behalf of seller to facilitate a successful sale of their premises and not for the benefit of an unrepresented buyer and does not create an agency relationship. I think this is pretty clear. We can do certain tasks. We can even provide forms for the buyer to let us know what needs to be filled in, but we are not advising them. In this case, you are not a dual agent. You are not under limited representation. They are not represented by you, so your fiduciary duty rests solely with the seller. The next line is the ready form, real estate agency disclosure and election. An unrepresented buyer should Review and sign the ready form acknowledging that seller broker only represents seller and not an unrepresented buyer. I think I put this in here. Hold on one second. Let's see. I did actually put this in here. So you will see this form, line 49. Represent the seller as seller's broker. That is the only box that is checked under the buyer section. You are not showing the property listed. No, you are only representing the seller. Right? Does that make sense? One box, and then down here on line 60, the box for buyer. Now I'm going to go back up because I need to finish this right here. Whoops. So the buyer's and agent name on the top of that ready form, by a broker only represents the seller, right? Here's the one that's a kicker, right? Fiduciary. If you, buyer, unrepresented buyer, right, are telling me as an unrepresented buyer that you want to start your offer at this price, but are actually willing to pay this price, what do you think I am going to tell my seller? Hey, they started at this, but they say they would be happy to pay this. You do not represent that buyer. Your fiduciary is to your seller. What do you think the seller's counteroffer is going to be? Higher price, right? Fair dealings, right? Seller broker shall be honest and truthful to an unrepresented buyer and deal fairly with them. However, the duty to deal fairly does not include, this is so important, giving advice to unrepresented buyer on the steps they should take to protect their own interests, provide interpretation of contract items, or notify them of deadlines. Unrepresented buyer acknowledges that statements made by seller have not been independently verified by seller's broker, and seller broker is not responsible for seller's representations.
Quick question.
You hold on one second, please let me finish this paragraph. I'll get to your question in just a second. You cannot, if you are not representing them, do not tell them how they should interpret lines of that purchase contract. If they have questions, they need to seek independent legal counsel. Do not remind them of timelines or ask them if they are going to submit their repair requests by a certain date. You represent the seller. If the buyer does not know the contract timelines, that is on them. It is not for you to remind them. Okay. Somebody had a question there.
Yeah, I do. Can you say to an unrepresented buyer, look, I highly recommend that you consider buyer representation with an agent?
It says it right at the top of the document.
Okay.
It absolutely has, it says that you instructed them and they have elected not to do that.
Thank you.
So yes. Okay. Due diligence. Unrepresented buyer acknowledges it is their responsibility to protect their own interests and are encouraged to hire their own professionals to advise them in matters of real estate inspection, contract timelines, financing, zoning law, tax, insurance, or any other area they deem appropriate to assist them in purchasing the premises. Unrepresented buyer assumes all risk should they choose not to hire professionals to assist them in purchasing the premises. So, are you going to provide them with a list of inspectors? The answer is no. Are you going to provide them with a list of anyone?
No.
Are you going to encourage them to seek hiring an attorney? Yes? Get your own, right? Get your own.
Quick question about that. So I know you guys are always talking about it's good for the buyers to go and do inspections because it actually helps sellers. So if you want that to be the case, would that be doing for you to help out the buyers?
Nope.
Say, hey, here's
You can't. So if the buyer says, I'm going to have an inspection, can I schedule that? Who has to be there while the inspection is going on? Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Guess why? Because you represent the seller.
Protecting.
You're protecting the seller. Are you answering questions there?
No.
Nope. Hand them the seller property disclosure statement. I honestly think, I love this form, by the way, but I think this is going to be the hardest form for some of our agents to understand. Many of you are caretakers. You are so concerned about your buyers. You want to protect your buyers. I actually just dealt with this with my brother. Don't even ask, I have this homeless, but he brought a buyer to the table. I'm like, I can't talk to them. You're my brother. I cannot represent them. And this buyer's like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I sat there. It was horrible. Absolutely horrible. You are sitting there watching the buyer make mistake after mistake after mistake, and you can do nothing. Okay.
I'm surprised they took so long to make this form because we've had the unrepresented seller form for.
Correct. So the question is, can you use DocuSign on this form and on the AAR forms with an unrepresented buyer?
DocuSign maybe because you pay for it yourself.
Can you use any electronic signature platform? Okay, so the preference is no. Okay, and the reason it is no is because you're filling in those forms. Now, we all know you may have a buyer that's out of state. Your goal is to facilitate the transaction on behalf of your seller. So if in fact you do need to use DocuSign or AuthentiSign or any of the signing programs, you can do it. But there are some real key steps that need to occur. You need to have the buyer send you clear direction on what they want filled in. You could send them a sample form. Please note this form, as you see it on the screen, has the word sample across that. You can get all of the forms from AAR with the word sample with a watermark that actually is blocked out. You can send the purchase contract to them and say, please fill this out with, or tell me what you want in all of the blank lines. And then you can prepare that. Second step, you are sending that back to them in a PDF to verify you have filled it out to the way they want it filled out. Then you can put it into an electronic signature program, and not until then. You are not doing this over the phone, clicking through and listening to them. You need them to send you that clear instruction. Must be in writing, right? Not verbal. That's why you cannot do it off the phone. You've got to have it written to you. Then you can send it electronically. They can send you, what do they want to ask the seller to repair? Sure, send me a list. Are you going to ask them questions about it? Nope. I guess you could ask them clarifying if it doesn't make any sense to you, but you're not diving into it. You're not saying, well, normally you could do, nope. Again, you do not represent the buyer. So they can instruct you on that BINSR. You can prepare the BINSR for them. You can use these forms. Can they send you an offer on a blank sheet of paper and say, Melissa Schwartz wants to, want to purchase this property? They can. Is that in your seller's best interest to accept that? Could be. Could be, depending on what it says. But if you want to counter with the purchase contract that we have, might be a good idea. Right now, there are plenty of people that say that our purchase contract benefits the buyers. So if you're in that, group that feels like that's true, then you might hold off on it. I have one more form to go, and it's a pretty simple form. It's just an addendum to this. So I know it's almost 12. So thank you for bearing with me. I hope I answered some questions earlier. But let's get to the last page here. Buyer tenant employment agreement addendum. Why does this say buyer/tenant?
Yes, because there's a tenant broker exclusive.
There is now a tenant broker exclusive. We did not go over it today. We did not have time, but this addendum will work for both of those. So yep, you're absolutely correct. Pretty simple, right? You've got a buyer or tenant, the broker's name, the agreement name, so you know what agreement you are addending to, right? Or is this a part of the BB buyer broker agreement to show property, or the BBEEA, or the tenant broker exclusive employment agreement? This is an addendum to the above agreement dated. What is the date that goes in there?
The one that was signed, that you agreed to.
The final date that original agreement was executed, not the date that one party signed it, but the final date, right? So if your buyer signed it on the 10th and you signed it on the 12th, what's the date of that agreement? The 12th, right? Okay, so check any that apply. The following modified or additional terms and conditions are hereby included as part of the agreement between buyer and broker. Check any that apply. Broker compensation. Buyer and broker agree to modify the broker compensation as follows. So to those asking earlier, can you increase or decrease the amount of that broker compensation? Yes, you can. Could you specify that it has to do with a specific property or a specific contract with regard to just that deal, right? This is an addendum with regard to the purchase of this property. You could probably define that down below, right? Term expiration. If you're changing, when does that, what is the date of the buyer broker contract, right? You're doing a buyer broker exclusive agreement. You decide, look, I want to get to know you and I want you to have the opportunity to get to know me. So let's do this for 2 weeks. It's exclusive. We're going to do it for 2 weeks. We're going to go see homes over the next 14 days. At the end of that time, we're going to extend this. This is the form that would extend it, right? You put this together and you put an extension on that. All right, I think I've shown my value. If it's something you want to work with, let's extend it. If it's not, thank you very much. Good luck to you, right? So, but who needs to be watching? Who needs to be watching those expiration dates? You do.
You should do that for marriages.
Yeah, there are no expiration dates on marriages there. There you go. So, and then you've got other modified terms and conditions. So you with those things. Cancellation. How many people are needed to cancel a buyer broker exclusive employment agreement? How many? How many people enter into the agreement? Two. It's mutual. It's mutual. How many people are required? Well, two, or there could be more, but there are two buyers and broker, right? There could be more buyers, but there are two entities, right? How many people are required to cancel that agreement? Both parties, right? Cancellation. Buyer and broker agree to mutually terminate this agreement effective immediately. Neither party shall have any further rights, duties, or obligations under the agreement, and mutually release each other from all liabilities, claims, and causes of action related to the agreement. Then the next one is buyer and broker agree to mutually terminate the agreement effective immediately upon the following terms and conditions. What might you write down on those blank lines?
If they write a contract on a property that you may have shown them already.
Maybe an early exit fee, a termination fee that you might write in there. So you could put something that I've shown you, 200 homes and you owe me gas money. I don't know. So you owe me something, right? So you could do that. Let's see. Zillow, are any of you here work the Zillow platform at all? No. Anybody online?
Haven't gotten any good thing yet.
Okay.
Rosie had one more.
You do? Okay, so Zillow leads. Please reach out to your broker before you use their new showing form. I have not seen it, but some of the brokers at Realty One Group have reviewed this showing form and feel it does not satisfy the terms of the NAR settlement. Please let me know. I have to take a look at it. I've not had a chance. Buyer broker agreements, again, will be held in the Sky Slope system. They need to be entered into the contract within 72 hours of signing them, okay? Before people in here start talking, let me ask if folks online have any questions, because once you guys get up, we won't be able to hear them. I know it is 12 o'clock. If you guys can hold on just a minute, it'd be great. Any questions online? Okay, so just so you know, on Thursday, Leah is going to do the next set of these. She's going to talk about compensation agreements. I will mirror her slides and do that on next Tuesday, again, in person and online. The following week, we will talk about the ER and the listing agreement changes. Please note the following Tuesday meeting, I will basically have a mastermind and we can sit down and really talk about questions you guys still have. We'll go over things like that. Any questions in here before I shut down the Zoom? Yes. Your ER agreement will still move forward. You probably need to have a conversation with your sellers to let them know that it continues forward. Their offer of compensation, if they want to change it, you can do a listing contract addendum. The thing that will change on the 1st is the MLS offer of co-broke will go away. So I think you need to have a conversation, but you do not have to update that form. You could, again, do a listing contract addendum if you want.
Be the same for rentals, the rental listings.
So rental, yes, all MLS co-brokes will disappear from the MLS. The question was, will that apply to rentals? And yes, everything on the MLS, there will be no co-brokes offered visible in the MLS. I had a question over here.
Yes, I didn't register for this before. How do I register now so that I get all that?
Can you, can you see Kat at the end and we'll make sure we get that? Just hang on, Kat, we'll get that from you.
I'm just not gonna be here to ask this next week. In the MLS, like private remarks, can we say CAB agreement available upon request?
No.
I wonder why not.
You cannot put anything with regard to compensation in the MLS. You can put that the seller's willing to pay concessions. It cannot reference compensation. If you've not heard those new, how we've kind of split that out, concessions, the buyer ends up paying, compensation is between a seller and buyer broker in one, or a listing broker and buying broker. Okay. Anything else in here? Thank you guys online. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties earlier. Let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Melissa.
Yeah.